thank you for taking time for interviewing with me.
Oh, great. Yeah, no problem.
So, the first question I ask anyone I interview is, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Got a bunch of interviews today, so that's a good thing. The album comes out May 17th, so kind of excited about that to see how it does. And so far, everybody seems to be, like liking it quite a bit. So I'm pretty happy about that. You never know with people these days.
That is true. So, how do you feel now that the album's completed?
Yeah, well, it's been a while because the Paradox came out in 2019, and as soon as
Mhm.
we put the album out, COVID hit,
Yeah.
and that ruined everybody's lives ruined everybody's lives for like 2 years,
hmm
pretty much. Basically, not quite that long, but it was about that. And for the first year, it was really hectic, and how much crazy stuff was going on, and people were not leaving their houses or anything, and the whole industry of the whole United States almost shut down, basically.
hmm
So it took us a little while to write this record, and the good thing was our label was really good about that. We didn't have any kind of time limit on our contract, so
hmm
they were like, just take your time, as long as we know you're writing the record and everything's good, we're fine with that. So we took our time writing, and as a band, because we all have jobs and stuff, we only get together on Saturdays.
hmm
And if somebody misses a Saturday, or if we don't practice a Saturday, then it's like 2 weeks go by and we don't even, get together at all. So
hmm
we don't practice as much as we would like to be able to, but with everybody's lives, this is pretty much, we try to do every Saturday as much as possible. So when it comes to writing, it could, writing a song could, we only write the music in the rehearsal room.
hmm
So uh, that way it's more of a collaboration of the whole band.
Right.
And instead of having, like, say, the guitar player write all the songs and then come in and record them on a little machine with a drum machine and say, oh, here, learn all this stuff, I got all these songs written, or something like that. We don't do that at all. We come in there, one guitar player will start with a riff and we'll work on that for a little while, then the other guitar player will come up with a riff, and then we'll connect those two. So we kind of build the songs in the rehearsal room, so everything's written by everybody and everybody throws in parts.
hmm
and
So,
and that, it took a little while, but I think it's worth it when you have a collaboration like that, and everybody can look at the album and go, yeah, I did an equal part of this.
right. So, with them saying that there wasn't a time limit for the album, do you think that helped in making the album better or gave you just more time to work through ideas? How do you think that affected it?
I always think it's better. Plus, the recording was kind of like over several months as well, and again, that was done on the weekends. The studio that we recorded in is in Orlando, and we're all in Tampa area, so it's about an hour and a half drive, which is not that bad. But what we, literally, we drive there on a Saturday, record for 7 or 8 hours, drive back home, drive back on a Sunday sometimes, and record for 5 or 6 hours on Sunday, and then drive back home. And
Mm-hmm.
Jared Richard, who engineered and produced the album in his studios in Orlando, he also does live sound for a lot of bands, like Tom Warrior. He does all of the Celtic Frost and Triptychon stuff. He does 1349. Yeah, so he goes on tour, and he luckily he didn't have anything really long, but he had a lot of like 2 week tours and things like that where we'd have to take off that time too, and couldn't go into the studio. So we started recording the album in October, and we didn't literally finish the mixing until like almost March, or it was in February, I think it was. We actually finished everything finally, and then
Mm-hmm.
we had to master it too after that, after the mixing. So it took a while to record the record, but I like being able to take it over time, because some of the records that I've done, they were recorded basically over a weekend or over a week,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're done, you're done. That's it. What you have is what you have. And you always think, oh, I wish I would have done that, or I could have, changed this or done this better. So
Mm-hmm.
when you get to take time, you can listen, record part of it, and then listen to it for a week or two, and then go back and okay, I like this, I don't like this. Let's redo this. But luckily, with the drums, I did them the first weekend, and we just stuck with what I had there, and started building on that. So I didn't have to go back and redo any of the actual drum tracks, the original drum tracks, which was good.
Hmm.
So we had time, and I think it's much better having time. I think that's why a lot of bands have throwaway songs on their records because they have a time limit and they have to put out an album, say by the end of October or something, and they're under contract to do so. So they have to write a couple of songs or several songs even sometimes that aren't up to what they would like just because they need what's called filler on an album. And I don't want to put out an album with filler songs on it or throwaway songs. They also call them that, and just have one or two of the songs that are supposed to be, not for a lack of a better term, the hits, like these are
Yeah.
the big, but yeah, because we don't really write hits, we write death metal. So, yeah, but I want every song to be, for me to be happy with it. I don't want to write a song because we got 10 minutes on the album left and we have to throw something there.
Yeah. So it's definitely quality with this album, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's the big thing to me. I have to be happy with it before anybody else hears it.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about the album?
um I think this time, I think it's the fact that we all got a chance to put something into it, and it's a bigger mix of people's personalities and writing, and it
Hmm.
so none of the songs sound like each other, and that to me is a big goal. I more than anything, I want to sound unique. I don't want to sound like anybody else. I have influences and people that I like to listen to and things like that, of course, but I don't want to sound like anybody else. And I want to make sure that that happens. And I think when you get four people writing, the music together and each putting in a lot of their own stuff, you're going to have something much different than you have one or two people writing everything and everybody else learning it.
Right. So it's more of a team effort this
Right.
time.
Exactly. Yes, for sure.
Well, that's really cool. Do you have any funny or fun stories to share about any of the recording adventures that you guys had?
Well, I mean, the thing with that is Jarrett, who owns the studio and did everything. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. He used to
Mhm.
play guitar in Tampa in a death metal band in the '90s called Eulogy, and
Oh,
we actually lived in the same apartment complex and in the same building too. So we used
wow.
to hang out, a long time ago, back around 93, 94, 95 era. We'd hang out and just talk and stuff, and he didn't even do any kind of engineering or anything at the time. He just played guitar in a death metal band. So we've
Mhm.
been friends for a long time, and then he went to school for sound and became this really good sound man and engineer, and he's got certifications and all kinds of stuff now. So it's kind of cool that he's a friend of ours. So when we go, to his studio to record, he has dogs in the studio. He
Aw.
lives there, so he has dogs there, and so we go hang out, and it's more of like a friendship thing when we go there because we
Hmm.
know each other, and it doesn't feel like it's a business venture. Where some studios you don't know the people, you go in there, you pay the money per hour, and you get a product at the end of it. Uh, this is a different kind of situation. So when we go in there, we can laugh, joke around, talk about old stories, record.
Hmm.
The dog there. It's in a house, but it's a really good studio. So it's a,
Hmm.
a more comfortable situation than going into a building and paying by the hour and having a product by somebody you don't really know
Hmm.
sticking their finger in your music.
So do the dogs give you any feedback about anything like the recording process or anything like that, or does he charge extra for that?
Yeah, that's extra actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but usually they just kind of lay around and listen.
I guess it's a good thing. I guess if they didn't like it, they would be crying or howling. So I guess that means it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, exactly.
So what was the most difficult thing that happened during the recording process?
Well, we had a lot of problems with our bass player, and he didn't. He works some weekends too, so he rarely came to practice anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
he would, and then even a lot of other times he would just miss practices like 2 and 3 weeks in a row. So when we were writing the album, he was never there. He's been in the band over 10 years and has never written one thing. And we always tried to get him to write stuff, like come to practice and write these songs with us. But when he only shows up to every third or fourth practice, and we only practice once a week. So he might come once a month. And when he does come, we'd have to show him all this stuff. And then he doesn't practice at home. So he would come back and we'd have to show it to him again and then try to show him more stuff. So, and we kept telling him, we're going to record this album starting in October. And he didn't practice on any of the songs. He had recordings that we had made here at my house when we practiced. So he had the ability to have something to practice to for the songs, but he just didn't do it. And when it came to the studio, he kept putting it off and not going like 3 weekends in a row. Oh, I can't make it. I can't make it. And that put us farther and farther behind too. And when he got there, he only played on 5 of the songs,
Oh wow.
and they had to be pieced to get together. He
Mm-hmm.
he didn't come in there and play any songs straight through at all.
Wow, that
And
sounds difficult.
yeah, and our guitar player, Belial, had to play most of the bass parts on the rest of the record. So, and even on those 5 songs that he did play, everything had to be fixed and changed, and he had to learn the songs right there in the studio. And it took 2 full weekends just to get the bass tracks done, almost 3 weekends. And
Wow.
that put us really far behind and cost a lot of money in the studio time.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have been that way. So, and things were getting worse and worse instead of better. And we just were like, okay, and I know you've been in the band a long time, but we can't keep doing this anymore. And so we let him go and found another bass player. And Kyle is so calls that he's the new bass player, and he's really fantastic bass player. He plays in a few bands actually too, and so he he tabbed the songs out before he even came to try out for us. He
Oh
wrote
wow.
some of the songs out on his own, and he came into the practice and just nailed it. And now, even though he's in other bands, so he doesn't always come every Saturday either, but when he's there, he remembers everything. He's got other stuff written out, so he can just throw it up there on a little music stand and play the songs with no problem. So he remembers the stuff, and we don't have to reteach him. Once we teach him a song, he remembers it, and he'll go home and tab it out on paper so he doesn't forget it. And he
That's awesome.
practices at home. So when he comes, it's he'll play through the songs, and then we can start working on another one. Because we have, the whole Key album, the whole Paradox album, and now the whole Unicursal album to teach him.
Mhm.
That's 3 albums of songs. That's a lot of songs with a
Yeah.
lot of changes. And so somebody has to be pretty good and to be able to do that. But that was pretty much the worst part of recording the album was trying to get the bass accomplished, which should have been probably the easiest thing on the record to do.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys figured it out, and it sounds like this new thing is working out so much better. So sometimes something bad happens and then something amazing happens.
Yeah, I mean, he was a friend of ours, and we gave him lots of chances, but he just didn't change. And when you tell somebody, look, you got to change, and we did that almost, you know 10 times probably. We told him this is it, and he
Yeah.
still kept him and still kept him, and it just was like a circle. He'd start coming to practice once or twice, and then start missing again, and it was just like, and the fact that he was never contributing. Now we have Kyle, and now that we're going to write the next album, because this one's done, we'll start writing new songs real soon here. He's going to be able to contribute to those,
Yeah.
and now we're going to have even more influences on the new songs, and more stuff to put into the new songs. So it
For
is
sure.
a good thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. It sounded like a roller coaster, and then I'm like, okay, then something really good happens, so we end on a high note. So that's awesome.
Yes, for sure.
So one of the most difficult questions, what is your favorite song on the album?
That's a I don't even know myself, to tell you the truth. I was going with Yesod Dark Side of the Moon probably is my favorite, but then we just started working on a video for Hode, the Stellar Light song, and
Mhm,
I think that's turned into my favorite song. And we have a new video. It's all CGI animation with
mhm,
Dr. May, just the guy behind you, the guy on our cover, our mascot, and it's got to do with the cover. So it's no AI on this at all. It's all CGI, like a almost like a video game or something you could say. It's really cool. So it'll be out in maybe a week or two, because it's almost finished. And now that we've been working on that, and I see the video along with the music, it's just like I think that's probably become my favorite song.
Yeah, I love the music videos. I listened to the album and then I watched some videos the other day. I'm like, this is so unique. It's very different from other things I've seen, which kind of intrigued me even more.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we try to be different. That's to me, that's the big thing, is not sounding like somebody else. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people have influences. Everybody has influences, but a lot of bands, when they get influences, they want to sound like this band. Like I love band X, so I want to sound like band X, and I might like band X too, but I don't want to sound like band X. I
Mm-hmm.
might like little parts of this and say I could use something like this, but change it again anyway, so it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
sound like them. But so many bands do that. They get a band that they really like, and their band sounds like that band.
For
And
sure.
and and I never wanted to do that. I've always wanted to try to make sure that my band doesn't sound like anybody else's band.
For sure. I think you definitely have done that. Like I said, even with the video, I watched the latest one that was released and I'm like, this is so different. Where did the creative process come for that one?
Well, I think that it's the fact that we do put a lot of different people's parts in the songs. So when it comes to writing the music, everybody's chipping in. And they did that. We did it a lot on Paradox too, but we did it even more on Unicursal. So there's so much of a mix of, like, our two guitar players are completely different from each other. It, their styles are different. So it's like when one person throws in a riff and then the other person throws in a riff, and we put those two riffs together, they sound completely different. And that's I think that's what happens when you do that. You get a more unique sounding song when more people contribute to it.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I love it. It's something unique that I haven't seen before. So I'm not even really big into death metal, but I'm like, I think I like death metal now. So I'm like, this is awesome.
Well, that's a good thing. A lot of it has the same kind of vocal style, and I even try to be different in that, and not
Mhm,
do the growling thing as much as most people. I just do my own thing with the
mhm,
vocals too, and it kind of matches more with the drums than the melody. So
mhm.
it's more like a chanting than singing. And some of the songs are almost like a narrating type thing with the story of Dr. Magus there. The last four songs of the record are a story about him, and it's
Mhm.
continued from the key and continued from Paradox. The last four songs on every record are a little continuing story. So when it comes to that, those songs are more narrative than anything like he's doing this, but it's in first person, like I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And
Mhm.
then that first half of the record are more like just songs of general topics that I like, and things that I saw, or movies, things like that, that I wanted to write a song about.
For sure. What do you hope that people can take away from this album?
Well, just a good listening experience. Yeah, a few people that have heard the album already ahead of time, they're like, when I put the record on and I listen to the whole thing, it's like it immerses me, and I feel like it's a whole a whole thing. Like
Mhm.
some bands, you put it on and every song is sometimes they all sound the same, and sometimes they're all really different. but a lot of people's albums don't really connect the whole way through. Some do, of course, but some don't. And I think a lot of people have told me that when they listen to the whole thing, it just like puts them in a certain mindset, and it
Hmm.
keeps them there through the whole record. And to me, that's a really, really, really good accomplishment.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like a lot of metal music does that. So I'm like, metal's probably the best genre. No, might be a little biased, but metal's where it's
Well,
at.
I think it's got a lot of subgenres.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
even death metal has technical death metal, grind death metal, black death metal. Just the term death metal has a, and then you take the term metal, and everything used to just be heavy metal. It was heavy metal or rock, and heavy metal became like all kinds of different metal, like power metal, thrash metal,
Yeah.
death metal, grindcore, and it split into all these different things. And then even those things split into more blackened death metal, technical death metal. And the more it splits up, it grows more as a
Hmm.
total. But also at the same time, sometimes people only like one type of death metal, say.
Right.
So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I mean, it's really expanded to where there's so many subgenres of metal now, and even subgenres of death metal, that sometimes the crowds are smaller in that aspect, because some people will only listen to black metal, some people will only listen to death metal, some people will only listen to power metal, and they don't
Hmm.
like the rest of metal. Whereas before, everything was just metal and everybody listened to it. So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I mean, it could
Hmm.
go both ways to me, but it's interesting because we get labeled in a lot of different types of metal because we do kind of different things. We can play
Hmm.
with black metal bands, we can play with death metal bands, we can even play with power metal bands, and it works really well. So I think trying to throw as many concepts in and different things into our music has helped us stay out of one particular really small category.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like you said, you can kind of go a different way, which is really cool, especially with the band, because you can play with this genre, that genre, whatever, and it works. And that's really awesome because I feel like a lot of people nowadays like they want that diversity, in music. So you do that really well.
Yeah, I grew up in the '70s, so I listened to a lot of different kinds of music growing up. I mean,
Yeah.
music has changed over the years so much, and when I was a kid, Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and Pink Floyd were the bands that I
Hmm.
listened to. And so I have that kind of aspect in my music. And then you got into the '80s and '90s where, well, '80s where you had Slayer and Metallica and things like that were really, really big. And then you got into the '90s where it was more, death metal was huge. And so I, over the years, all those different aspects of things I've listened to, I've put into every band I've been in.
Hmm.
So every time something new, I put out something new, I try to put all that stuff together into every little bit of every song.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I do have one last question for you.
Sure.
And the question is there anything that you would like to say to your old fans, new fans, anyone interested in listening to the new album?
Well, I just keep an open mind. That's a good thing, when you're listening to it, because it really doesn't sound like anybody else. And it's hard to say that these days, but I try. I've found I can't find any other bands that sound like us, which is a good thing to me. But it does it's a different listening experience, I think, because it isn't all, just this or just that. It has a lot of different elements in it. So I'm just happy that over the years that a lot of people that like what I did in 1980 still like what I do now. Some do, some don't, of course, but to
Hmm.
me, there's a lot of new people that just heard the key for the first time this year, or and they're like, wow, this album could have been put out this year. and but it was
Mhm.
put out in, in 1990. So it's it's kind of a cool thing that it's expanded how it has,
Mhm.
but it's good that it just keeps developing, for me, and growing. So I think when if people give it a chance and look at it as something that's not in one supposed to be one thing,
Mhm.
and just kind of think, just take it for what it is. And a lot of people that have listened to my stuff over the years do that with the new stuff, and they love it because it's fresh, and it's not the same thing over and over again.
Mhm.
So I think that's the biggest thing, is that people give it a chance at least. And some people really like it, and some people, in the same sense, don't like it at all. So
Mhm.
that's the thing that happens when you try to do something that doesn't sound like anything else. You're always going to get people that love it and people that hate it, and that's okay with me, because I have to like it first, and that's the
Mhm.
biggest thing. So if I'm happy with it, even if 5 people out there like it only, that's okay with me because I like it.
That is true. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time for doing this interview. And I think a lot of people are really going to like this album. Like you said, there's so much music out there, and this doesn't sound like anything, which is really awesome and really hard to do, I think, with more bands emerging. So if anyone is interested, definitely pick up a copy. This album is great.
Thanks, I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Well, thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. And the album comes out on the 17th of May. So Profound Lore Records.